phông Việt Key được chưa? Việt Key 2000 thì lúc đó cái Việt Key nó sẽ không hỗ trợ với các bạn, là cái phông của bạn bị lỗi phông thì các bạn cần phải cài cái Việt Key 2000. Mình chỉ lưu ý như thế này thôi, cài Việt Key 2000 thì nó sẽ không bị lỗi cái phông đọc ở trong cái file Việt Key ở trong Word được chưa? Đấy, còn đấy như thế này thôi. Còn nếu mà một số phông thư pháp để làm đồ họa các thứ ấy, thì các bạn ép thêm vào là được. Rồi, nếu mà nó bị lỗi ấy, và các bạn ép nhiều ấy, thì các bạn nên ép, ví dụ làm Việt Nam thì mình chỉ cho cái phông VN, VI và VNI thôi để cho nó chạy cái phông của tiếng Việt thôi. Còn nếu mà các bạn mà tung ra một cái hàng mười mấy ngàn phông, cả cái phông nước tàu cựa này, Thailand này, hoặc là một số phông của bên Nhật gì ấy, để lấy vào chúng ta không dùng, nó còn nặng máy, nó hay nặng là máy á, bạn lấy cái phông vào nhiều là nó hay nặng lắm, cho mình để cái phông Việt Nam đi được chưa? Đấy, khuyến nghị này được chưa? Khuyến nghị này rất hay này. Đấy, ok các bạn nhé.
Hey there, it's Dave for Hot Hardware, and today we're going to take another look at the Dell Xps 15, which, as you may know, is one of the most highly regarded 15-inch notebooks in the market currently, both in terms of performance and its premium build quality. But Dell has revamped the machine over the years a number of times with new platform technologies, and this time around, we're going to take a look at Dell's Xps 15, which is now powered by Intel's 7th generation Kaby Lake processor technology, and it also has on board a new NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1050 graphics engine. So, we figured we'd look at this from a little bit different angle for you and answer the question, does Dell's Xps 15 really have game? Let's take a look. Dell's Xps 15 hasn't changed much physically with this revision, and that's generally a very good thing. The same sleek lines are here, that sweet matte finished and hatched carbon fiber composite palm rest area, its high quality CNC machined aluminum lid, and chiclet style keyboard with a spacious trackpad. The keyboard has good rigidity and key travel, but maybe a tweak Dell could consider in the future iteration would be shaping the keys to be a bit more forgiving of missed strokes, and for a bit more comfort in general. Regardless, with a small bit of learning curve, we like the XPS 15 typing deck just fine. And though not seen in our early revision here, the new XPS 15 does come with a fingerprint reader for quick, secure Windows Hello login. And you still get the XPS 15's generous assortment of I/O port options with a headset jack, Thunderbolt 3 port, full-size HDMI output, USB 3 with power share, and an AC power on the left side. While on the right edge, Dell offers the same Kensington lock slot, battery gauge button, and indicator LED strip, another USB 3 port with power share, and an SD card slot. Literally, except for that fingerprint reader, nothing mechanical or I/O option-wise has been changed here. The other thing that hasn't changed here, thankfully, is the XPS 15's stunning 15-inch Infinity Edge display with its super thin bezel. Yes, this keeps the onboard webcam located at the bottom left of the display, but I personally have no problem making the trade-off in exchange for this gorgeous panel setup, possibly attaching a USB webcam if I really need my beauty shots at the proper angle. The thin bezel of Dell's Infinity Edge display allows the XPS 15, like previous versions, to land in a footprint the size of an average 14-inch laptop. And speaking of beauty shots and angles, viewing angles with this panel are top-notch as well. Colors are balanced and vibrant with its 350-nit panel that comes in both Full HD 1080p options for a bit better battery life, as well as a 4K ultra-sharp version, if you're a real pixel and real estate snob. But let's not drone on too much with minutia. You came here to learn how Dell's new Kaby Lake and GeForce GTX 1050 infused XPS 15 handles under gaming workloads. First, let's get a few specs out of the way so you know what we're working with. The XPS 15 model 9560 we're testing here is powered by a 7th gen Intel Core i7 7700HQ quad-core processor with boost to 3.8 GHz. Also on board is an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1050 graphics engine with 4GB of GDDR5 memory. Finally, this is all backed up with 16GB of DDR4 2400MHz memory and a 512GB PCI Express NVMe solid-state drive. Incidentally, that memory is expandable to 32GB if you would like. We'll be game testing on the 4K Infinity Edge touch display, but gaming at native resolution really isn't an option with the kind of horsepower we're working with here. However, Dell's display does a really nice job of downscaling at 1080p, and that's where we'll be game testing at. Now then, first up, synthetics, with 3D Mark Firestrike and Time Spy. FutureMark designed 3D Mark Firestrike for desktop PCs, but many of today's gaming laptops have the chops to take on its high-resolution textures, tessellation, and other effects of the test. Here, Dell's XPS 15 holds its own versus actual gaming laptop models from Dell, Asus, MSI, and HP. Versus previous generation mobile GPUs like the popular GeForce GTX 960, the GeForce GTX 1050 on board the XPS 15 is significantly faster. However, it didn't quite catch the GTX 965 in Dell's Alienware 13 model, but more on this later. 3D Mark Time Spy looks specifically at DX12 performance and is an equally rigorous test for PCs of all kinds, maybe more so in some respects. It's a fairly new benchmark, so we have fewer performance reference points to look at. However, here the XPS 15 does bring up the rear, though at least it's in the hunt. Let's look at some real games next. Monolith's surprisingly fun orc-slaying title, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, delivers a ton of visual fidelity even at the lowest quality settings. So to maximize the eye candy on the Dell Xps 15, we ran the game's high-quality benchmark loop at a couple of resolutions. All of the game's graphics-related options were enabled, along with FXAA and camera blur. Here, the XPS 15 still drops in the lower quadrant of our results versus the other gaming laptops. However, it's able to actually outpace Dell's own Alienware 13 with the previous generation GeForce GTX 965M GPU, scoring a buttery 60 frames per second or so at FHD 1080p resolutions. Incidentally, Alienware has revamped the AW13 with a GeForce GTX 1060, and as you can see, the results of that are at the top of our chart here. Rise of the Tomb Raider has hit the PC platform as an excellent Xbox port thanks to Nix's software. It's a competent console to PC port update with many graphic settings and effects to tweak and dial to your particular tastes and system capability. Some of the rendering and effects features include ambient occlusion, depth of field, dynamic foliage, bloom shader effects, and tessellation. Its visuals are pretty great, and as you can see here again at 1080p with high image quality settings, we are treated to 43 frames per second of performance and total playability on the XPS 15. Here again, the XPS 15 is able to outpace previous generation Alienware 13 performance with a GeForce GTX 965M, but just by a hair this time. And it hangs just fine with the other powerful gaming notebooks in our test database. Finally, Gears of War 4 is a great-looking game that makes impressive use of Epic Games' Unreal Engine 4 and its rich visual effects. Those playing on the PC platform have over 30 graphic settings at their disposal. Hashtag PC Master Race for hands-on fine-tuning. Here, we are testing the high image quality preset at 1080p resolution, and as you can see, Dell's XPS 15 with its NVIDIA GeForce GTX mobile graphics plant handles it just fine at 51 frames per second and can even scale to 1440p with playable frame rates. However, for serious gaming chops in Gears 4, the Alienware 13 R3 with GeForce GTX 1060 chalks up close to double the performance. And that about wraps up our little gaming test drive with Dell's new XPS 15 with Intel Kaby Lake and NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1050. Drop in a quick thumbs up if you like this little show and tell, but be sure to check out our full review of the machine coming to hothardware.com in a matter of days. Hit that subscribe button as well for more tech product reviews, event coverage, and our oh-so-nerdy 2.5 Geeks webcast. It's Dave for Hot Hardware with the 2017 Dell XPS 15 9560 laptop. We hope to see you again soon, and thanks very much for stopping by.
Apple's MacBook is one of the best built laptops you can buy today. Its unibody design is fantastic, and feels wonderful. Unfortunately, there aren't many Windows machines that match Apple's level of build quality, but I think I've come close to finding one with the Dell XPS 15. The XPS 15 is an aluminum clamshell design with carbon fiber on the inside. It has a fairly large Windows 10 precision touchpad, which is a nice touchpad. The keyboard is decently sized, but has less travel than your average laptop. Only 1.3 millimeters, which will take a little time to get used to. After you do, it's not too bad. On the right side, you have a Kensington lock, a battery indicator, a USB 3.0 port, and an SD card slot. Moving to the left side, you have a power adapter, a USB 3.0 port, an HDMI port, a Thunderbolt 3 port, and a headphone jack. Now, that Thunderbolt 3 port only has 2 PCI lanes, not 4, which means you're not going to get quite the same performance as, say, a Razer Blade when using an external GPU system. Now, where the XPS 15 really shines is in its display. There are 2 options, the 1080p matte display or the 4K glossy touchscreen mode. I have the 1080p display here, which is better for battery. However, both screens are going to be fantastic. 4K is going to be sharper, it's going to have slightly better color, and some people prefer the glossy display. Now, the 1080p display is still fantastic. It's not quite as color accurate, but it is still very, very good. One thing to note about the matte display is that some users have noticed which means the screen is blurry when scrolling through pages with text and gaming. I personally haven't noticed it. I've had no issues with it, but it's also just something to keep in mind. Now, the last thing to talk about on the display is the bezels, or rather the lack thereof. Bezels are so small, it makes the laptop fit in a 14-inch laptop footprint while having a 15.6-inch display. It's really a unique and awesome viewing experience. Now, with the 1080p display, you will get better battery life, assuming you have the same 97 watt-hour battery. And I say that because there is a 56 watt-hour model, which is actually what I have. The 56 watt-hour battery comes in the lower spec models. Now, given that the laptop is so small, it still is pretty powerful. It does have fans which will pick up when gaming or doing anything super intensive like video editing or 3D modeling, but it does have a GTX 1050 if you opt for the i5 7 model. RAM starts at 8 gigs and goes all the way up to 32. Processors range from i3, i5, and i7. The i3 model comes with Intel's integrated HD 630 graphics. All the other models have GTX 1050s in. The 1050 is a nice step above GeForce's 960M graphics card from last year, which means you can play some games. You're not going to be playing any AAA titles on the highest settings, but you can play pretty much any game you want as long as you're willing to turn the settings down. If you do have the 4K model, you're not going to be playing games at 4K. You'll have to scale things down to 1080p. Another thing to note that Dell started shipping these models out with Samsung SSDs, which benchmark higher than the models that they're shipping out now. They switched somewhere in the production to Toshiba drives, which they're still very fast. And you're not really going to notice a difference, but
but the review units that shipped out in early February do have a little bit faster drives. Now, there are two battery options. There's the 97 watt-hour battery and there's the 56 watt-hour battery. My version has the 56 watt-hour battery. It's okay. It's nothing to write home about. It's nothing super fantastic for a laptop, but it does me about 4 to 6 hours of usage, depending on what I'm doing, web browsing, video watching, and Word document, that kind of thing. I was able to get a little bit more performance, battery performance out of my laptop by undervolting the CPU. I got about an extra half an hour to an hour out of it. With the 1080p model and the 97 watt-hour battery, that combination is going to give you the best battery life. For reports of people getting about anywhere from 10 to 12 hours of web browsing, video watching, that kind of thing. If you start doing intensive tasks like gaming, video editing, the battery's going to go down quite a bit faster than almost any model you get. If you get the 4K version, you're going to get about 6 to 7 hours. Again, depending on what you do. If you again go to the higher usage stuff like video editing, it's going to be fast. I remember I can play about maybe an hour and a half of Rocket League on my laptop with a smaller battery before it does. But it's pretty good. Now, if you're the type of person that's going to want to unplug your laptop in the morning, go to the office, and work all day without touching the charger, you're going to want to get the 1080p 97 watt-hour battery. If you're like me, where you're just going to take the laptop to class for a couple hours, come home, and plug it into the charger, the 56 watt-hour battery will be sufficient. And that does come with an advantage, because with the smaller battery, there is a spot for an extra hard drive. You have to get a couple extra parts for it, but it's not expensive, and you get the extra storage space. When it comes time to purchase your laptop, you may run into a few issues. Dell's website is not very user-friendly. They have multiple pages for the same thing. They have information that's confusing. The customization options available are limited. Then there's the issue of quality control. My laptop actually had an issue with the part rather inside of it. I quickly contacted Dell shortly after I got it and was able to get them to send me a new one. So if you get this laptop, and you get a good one, you're going to love it because it's a fantastic laptop. Just make sure that when you get it, for a build quality check, make sure that everything's built how it should be. And then hope that you get one that is in good condition, because the shipping times, at least right now, shortly after the release of the product, are kind of slow.